Okay. I announced that we're going to be learning Hilchos Eiruv Tavshilin, I mean. And when I said that, I didn't recall that we learned it not long ago. So I'm going to be discussing, reading some tshuvas that are very relevant nowadays on different shilas that are nageya in understanding what's really going on. The first tshuva that I'm going to read is in Igros Moshe, and this is based on a halacha over here in Hilchos Eiruv Tavshilin. If you'd like to take a look, Tov Kuf Chav Zayin, Sif Zayin. Okay? Mitzvah al kol Adam la'orev. Okay? In English, that says that everybody has an obligation to make a Eiruv Tavshilin. Now, the question is it really a mitzvah or is it not a mitzvah? I'll just give you a very simple case where this is nageya. A yeshiva bacher was in a dormitory. Right? When I was a yeshiva bacher, I had an apartment in Gula, and I would eat on Shabbos in somebody else's house, right? So I wasn't doing any cooking. Is there any reason why I should be making an Eiruv Tavshilin? No. What does it say over here? What? Well, we'll discuss that later on. I'll just say most bachrim, they would be light to the candles with the lady of the place where they're eating. So they're not lighting candles either. But we'll discuss that also shortly. But the first question I'm asking you is, so what does it mean that it's a mitzvah called Adam La'arev? What do those words mean?
Anybody who it's applicable to.
I think that's not what the word mitzvah means. Mitzvah means that you have a kiyum of a positive commandment to do something. Now, it's a mitzvah to wear tefillin every day. Is that optional?
No.
Okay, so when it says mitzvah to make an Eiruv Tavshilin, is that optional?
It's not.
Well, I'll just say, it's a mitzvah to say Birkas Hamazon. If you didn't eat, okay? So it's only a mitzvah in a certain circumstance, right? So is there an implied circumstance that's being expressed over here? Or is this, make an Eiruv Tavshilin, you never know. I'll just share with you something which is amazing. I, by profession, happen to be a moil. And when I make an Eiruv Tavshilin, I say in the formula that said that the Eiruv Tavshilin should allow me also to shecht. Now, I haven't ever shechted on Yontif. It hasn't happened yet. No, to be a sheikh, I'm sorry. And okay, I haven't ever shechted on Yontif, but I say it because you never know what could happen, right? So, is there a reason to make an Eiruv Tavshilin on that situation? Now, another question: if you're only making an Eiruv Tavshilin because of an outside chance that something's going to happen, should you make a bracha? Okay? These are the different levels of the question. So I'm right now going to read this Igros Moshe. It's a fascinating Igros Moshe. Mi she'eino nitzach le'Eiruv Tavshilin im chayav la'asoisoi mikol mokom. Okay? Eiruv Tavshilin in kvar hechen kol ma shetzorach la'afus u'levashel l'tzorach Shabbos. V'gam yesh lo ner dolok, he has everything ready to go. Leka mitzvah lasas Eiruv Tavshilin. He agrees with you. Okay? V'cheinu mefurish b'Magen Avrohom, shekasar demishu b'beis ha'knesses, v'lo hiniach Eiruv Tavshilin, v'im yelech lebeis l'ariach Eiruv Tavshilin, yavor zman mincha. So he has a problem. He didn't do Eiruv Tavshilin, and he didn't daven mincha yet. And now Shkia is fast approaching. What should he do? He's in crunch time, okay? Yispalel mincha v'lo yaniach Eiruv Tavshilin. daven mincha, and skip the Eiruv Tavshin. You could give your food to somebody else and it becomes theirs, and then they can cook. Okay? Vim haya chiyuv mitzvah b'chol oifen, if it would have been a chiyuv to make an Eiruv Tavshilin, hara yesh l'chayvo l'elech l'beisa v'lasses Eiruv Tavshilin mitzad ha-mitzvah. He would have had to have gone home and not daven mincha. Right? Now, why does he assume that Eiruv Tavshilin would supersede mincha? Ela mashma deraka shetzarich levashel letzarich Shabbos ikachiv Eiruv Tavshilin v'lo kashen tzarich. And you can create a situation that it's not a tzarich, and then you're good to go. V'lachem mechadash ha-Magen Avraham da'av b'tzarich levashel letzarich Shabbos nami yesh la etza lahaknas kimcha lacherim ve'eno tzarich lachzul lebeisai. Aval mikol mokom le'echad shesho b'tchila b'erev Yom Tif ech yaseh im yachin hakol me'erev Yom Tif v'lo yitztarich lasos Eiruv Tavshilin im yesh lo neres dolkin o sheyas Eiruv Tavshilin v'vashel b'Yom Tov erev Shabbos tzarich v'ari lomo lo sheyeser tov sheyitztarich lasos Eiruv Tavshilin kedei shlo yitzim mizeh kilkul, in order that nothing, some kind of kilkul shouldn't come out. So Ramosha's opinion is that you have no obligation to make an Eiruv Tavshilin. Others disagree, and they say you have a chiyuv to make an Eiruv Tavshilin, and it's actually a mitzvah, even if you're not planning to use it. Okay? Now, this is a fascinating idea.
Why can't you just say the Eiruv Tavshilin formula in the shul and say, when I go home, I'll kavana, this is going to be my
Okay. Tshuva Siach Yitzchak has a long tshuva on that subject, but we'll just leave it with this, that the simple understanding of Tavshilin is you have to hold it in your hands when you say it. Okay? And if you're not going to be holding it in your hands, you cannot do that. Okay? But this is the first fascinating halacha which I'd like to share with you.
Can you just call up someone at home? Pick it up?
I don't think that the Mechaber and the Ramon Shulchan Aruch had that option. And most people,
Nowadays, we were talking about halachas.
well, nowadays, I'll just tell you that when you go to shul to daven, if you live in America, your wife already lit candles. How do I know this? It's a Mefurish Tshuva Nigras Moshe. Moshe has a fascinating tshuva where he went to shul 15 minutes before Shkia, and somebody complained to him that why are you being Mechal Shabbos? So he wrote a long tshuva explaining why it's not Chil Shabbos, and you're allowed to drive after your wife lights candles. And he says that anybody thinks that there's some kind of problem of Maras Ayin, it's not Maras Ayin if you're not Moritz and you don't know the halacha. Right? So there's absolutely no reason why I wasn't able to drive. And then he says after this, but if somebody thought I was doing something wrong, from now on I'm not going to do it anymore. But he says there's absolutely no place in Yiddishkeit to preclude me from going into a car at that time. And he says exactly when Shkia was, when he got into the car, when he got out of the car, Parshas Vayera. It says even which Parsha it was in the Tshuva, which is in the winter months when it's short, but that's a fascinating idea. Okay, that's one thing. Another fascinating Tshuva that I'd like to share with you is a Tshuva in a Minchas Yitzchak, but a Minchas Shleima. But in order for me to share this with you, there's some preliminary information which I would like to give you. If I have challah, that I have to have challah taken from it, and somebody comes and is mafresh challah from the challah that I have, and then when I come home, I'm about to take challah, he says, you can't take challah, I already took it. What's the halacha? What? And what did he do? He did nothing. No. He didn't even steal a mitzvah. No. He didn't do anything. It's not, he just moved something from one place to the other. But he cannot perform the mitzvah of challah without shlichus, right? What?
Bring a merit to someone even without permission. If a person would have otherwise forgotten to take challah, this person takes it on his behalf, and this person's going to get paid.
I don't even think that would work. If you took it on his own challah, having in mind to pater his challah, I'll just share with you, I have in my house here in Beit Shemesh a sefer written about one of the, if I'm not mistaken, of Nachman Baron, who was from the Gedolei Yerushalayim about 100 years ago, and he instituted a minig that he would take challah every single Friday and have in mind all the doughs that are in Eretz Yisrael that nobody took challah on, and when he died, it was given over to somebody else. Then eventually, Rav Zalman Auerbach was the one who did this every single Friday. When Rav Zalman died, so Shmuel Auerbach did it. After Shmuel Auerbach died, there's somebody else who's doing this today. Every single Friday, there's someone being mafresh challah for all of those who. No, it works. It works. There's 200 pages in the Sefer written about all of the opinions, backwards and forwards on the subject, how it works or when it works. You know, if you want, I can bring it in. One anybody wants to look at it, we can share it with you. But this is a serious issue. But that's if you're being mafresh on your own, that to pater somebody else's. But to go and take from somebody else's and decide that you're going to be a shliach without him letting you do so, that I don't think that there's any source that says that you can do such a thing. So, no.
Someone who wouldn't do it otherwise.
No. I'll just tell you, this idea of schia is from those most misused things. I'll just share you where the schia is something which is used, and I'll just tell you, I had this question this year after Pesach. Somebody called me from the United States, a rabbi, that one of his constituents had a very expensive bottle of schnapps worth a few $1,000s, and they forgot to sell their chametz. And they called him after Pesach to find out if there's any way that he can put it back on the shelf. Okay? And I said to him, I want to share with you something. I was by the Eid Achareidis by Mechiras Chametz probably 10 times at least. Nowadays they don't let anybody else in unless you happen to be one of the Dayanim. And the Eid Achareidis, they say that they're selling the Chametz for anybody who would have wanted them to be their shliach with schia. Okay? And this is something which I was there was a fight between Moshe Sternbach and Rav Yankel Bloy about this clause in the thing, whether you could put it in or you can't put it in. I'm not going to get involved in all the things that went on, but this is something which they've been doing for many, many years. Okay? Now, even though there are those who disagree with this, I'm going to share with you a psak from Rabbi Elyashiv, and this psak I think everybody agrees to. I, before Pesach, start selling people's chametz, or what we call getting commissioned to sell people's chametz, let's say a week before Pesach. A week before Pesach, Lev Seltzer comes to me and he says, Rabbi, will you please arrange for my chametz to be sold to a guy? And I say, no problem, and I have him fill out a form, and he does everything. And the nerve of Lev Seltzer, the next morning, he goes to the bakery and he buys cake. And the cake is very good. And he decides, I'm putting it away for after Pesach. I'm going to sell it with my chametz. Okay? When he made me a shliach to sell his chametz, he did not own that cake. So he can't make me a shliach on what's called a davar shelo ba'olam. So the shlichus that he had for me to sell that cake does not work. So how could I sell?
Why is that any better or worse than the other case where he didn't sell at all? He didn't sell any chametz. This here sold some chametz, so maybe you can say, well, maybe you could attach.
Oh, so that's what I'm going from one case to the other. So in this case, Rabbi Elyashiv says that being that he commissioned me to sell his chametz, that's enough in that to make it into a schia that he would want me to do it. With other cases where the guy never showed up altogether, there it's less. That works with schia.
What does the word schia mean?
The word schia means as follows. I told you part of what Rabbi Elyashiv said. I'm not going to give you the whole piece, but I want you to know something. That chametz, that piece of cake that he has in his freezer, How much is it worth on Pesach?
Pesach, 0.
0, right? So he has a choice. Either I could sell it for him, or he could have nothing. Right? So that's called tzchiyah. I'm doing something which is a win-win situation for him, and therefore, Rabbi Yasher says that tzchiyah will work in a situation where he was already made you a shliach to sell his other chametz for these things that came into his possession afterwards. Tzchiyah can work for that.
So why if you mafish challah for someone which the challah would be asur to, is now making it permissible to? So why is that not a skill?
Well, first of all, I made a few stipulations over here. Your challah, that's your tevel, is not worthless, right?
But the analogy is that just like you're making it permissible to now.
I'm not gonna get involved in all the technical difficulties. I'm just gonna say over the case that I gave, and then you'll see that your case has absolutely no connection. I came home and I see that somebody took challah. What did I come home to do? So where's the Zechios? I was planning to do the mitzvah myself.
Right. So in the case that someone was forgotten, won't do it.
So that's what the Minig Yerushalayim from the Barans was about. Okay, in that case, but there he didn't do it from the person's.
Right.
Okay, is only the person is benefiting from it,
Right.
And that's the case which was done. And I'm not going to get involved in that. This is a very sticky situation. Anybody wants? Maybe there's 300 pages. What? That's only lichatchila. It works without that. Okay.
The difference between the two is I'm doing a 5-day challah and I'm schlepping everybody onto my 5-day challah as opposed to...
No. There's a Gemara in Nedarim Daf Nun, which says clearly, speaking about Truma, that you could take Truma on your own stuff, on somebody else's, without shlichus. That's the Ran learns that Gemara. I'm not going to get involved. That's the Gemara. And, okay, now I would like to go a little further. I bought a house. In on Rehov Lachish, a big house, and I went to buy mezuzahs, and I buy myself the mezuzahs I need. I don't know, whatever you need. Probably the average house needs somewhere around 10 mezuzahs. Is that about right? Let's say I bought myself 10 mezuzahs, and I come to my house. It's a brand new house. There were never any mezuzahs on it before. And lo and behold, I see on every single door there's a mezuzah there. So I knock on my neighbor's door, and I say, "Do you know who put the mezuzah up?" He said, "Yeah, I did." So I said, "Why did you put up mezuzah on my door?" I said, "I saw that you moved in, you didn't have mezuzahs. So I decided I'll do the mitzvah for you." And he puts up the mezuzahs for me. Am I yetzer the mitzvah of mezuzah?
Yeah, because there's a mitzvah to have a mezuzah on the door.
Okay, according to some Rishonim, that's true. There's no mitzvah to place the mezuzah. There's a mitzvah to have the mezuzah. And whoever placed it, they just did a hechsher, so to speak, of the kiyum of the mitzvah. Even according to others, the bracha is made on putting it, but the bracha is not on the putting it. The bracha is on it being there. Even though the lashon of bracha is la'niach, take a tshuva. Ravad Yosef has a very long tshuva on this, and he makes it into machlokes rishonim. Fascinating tshuva. And with this, he answers the Shver Rabbi Kiva Eger and the Shach. He has a very nice piece on the subject. But the bottom line is that the pashtus is that the mitzvah was niskayim. Now, this would be true in many situations. There are mitzvahs that something has to be done. It doesn't have to be that you did it. Instead, the mitzvah was done. And if it was done, it was done. Whether the person who he did it gets schar or not, or if you get schar or not, I'm not getting involved in the hilchos schar of the mitzvahs. But I wanted to shecht my animal to eat, and I come there and somebody else shechted it already. So you said it's not kosher? Right? No, it happened. The mitzvah happened. So, and it doesn't have to be the person who... What? I don't know. Why do you say it's a hechsher mitzvah? Just tell me. It's a hechsher for which mitzvah?
It's not a hechsher mitzvah, it's a hechsher for the meat. It's not even a hechsher mitzvah, it's a hechsher just to get for the meat.
Okay, but there's a mitzvah that's happening. It's a pasuk in the Torah. It's considered a mitzvah d'oraisa to shech. Okay? And I want to just know, somebody shechted my animal without my permission. Is the meat kosher or not? What?
Yeah.
Not like challah, right? You understand the difference between the two. Because this is a question, you have to have it done, and it was done.
You can't challah, you can undo and then redo it.
That has nothing to do with it. What does one have to do with the other? The reason why challah, it doesn't work has nothing to do with kimatir neder on the afrasha. The reason why it doesn't work is because he's not a bailim and it has to be done with shlichus. Here, there's no halacha that it has to be done with shlichus, it just has to be done. So, now we're going to get to the next part. I don't think it has anything to do with... That's where it says the mitzvah is on, but I don't know if that's where the limud that it comes from is. It comes from the limud of truma, because challah is called truma, and truma there it says shlichus by truma. Okay, I'm just going to right now get to where we're trying to go with all this. What about Eiruv Tavshilin?
The rabbi of the city usually makes for those people who didn't make also.
Okay, but I'm going to speak about a different case. I'm going to, one of the, no ches, let's just get to it. Here, it should be in here someplace. Here, Shlomo Zalman is speaking about somebody lighting neres Chanukah for you without you being mamana them as a shliach. Vinay, Ashen is bar li'il shemitzvahs ner Chanukah asuya kechoyves habayis, and there if you would say if the bias has it, then yaitza mikomokam yeshvo gam choyves hagavra. The person has an obligation. Ve'enu doimel mezuzah sha'acha shekavu b'bayis es ha-mezuzah memela niftam legamri kol da'iri abinyan. Va'afim kava adam she'enu mibnei habayis v'shaloi b'shlichus habal habayis. A person who put up the mezuzah is not in any way related to the house. Yatsa b'nei bayis yedei chavasan v'bayis niftam mechoyves ha-mezuzah, because the house has a mezuzah on it. Okay, the mitzvah is not the tliya, and this is having it. V'ilu b'ner Chanukah shedlika acher shelo b'nei habayis shaloi b'shlichus bal habayis pshita d'lo yasa klum v'lo yatsa. Shlomo Zalman takes on as a given, you did absolutely nothing. V'zeu mishum d'chachamim hitilu ha-mitzvah gam choyves gavra ala adam shezeh mutar hakafta de gavra. The head, each person has an obligation to light Hanukkah candles. Kimo kein matzinu b'mitzvahs Eiruv Tavshilin shehi muteles ala balabayis. It's an obligation on the balabayis. Ubalabayis meniach es ha'eirav poiter boy es kol b'nei habayis v'gam ha'orchim ha'soimcha al shulchanoi. When he does the Eiruv Tavshilin, he has automatically been mitzi all the people that are shaykh to his household. Mikol mokom chashvani shel ha'acher sheniach bal habayis erev ein echad b'nei habayis yichol moniach erev va'atzmai ulevarech alav. They can't decide, I want to do it myself. Devadai havi bracha levatola. Why? Sharei nifteru kulam. All the other people, they were yaitz already, Eiruv Tavshilin, when the balabas did it. The yaitzim is echashvani, shegam koidem shabalabayis hiniach erev, im yoimer echad b'nei habayis o ishtoi sherotz l'nich Eiruv Tavshilin la'atzmai. I want to do it myself. V'gam beferish yoimer eneni roitza lotes beruba shel ha'balabayis yaseh harei zeh sheloi kedin. You cannot opt out and do it individually, even though you can do that by Neres Chanukah. Ve'efsher davi bracha she'ein tzricha, the dinu hu shekol hasemcha al shulchan ba'al habayis niftarim be'eruvay. They are parted with his Eruv.
When you have someone do Hilchos, when you make the Eiruv, you give it to someone.
Yeah.
Who's that for?
It's for people and the rest of the people. Yeah,
Right.
that's for people that are your neighbors and down the block, all those other people. The Nersh said, "Daimel mezuzah shebemela poter ishto barov hasamchim al shulchana v'ilu b'ner Chanukah ein anu noegim k'mahadrim min ha'mahadrim v'kol echad mechaver shlo lotzes b'adlokas acherim v'zeh mishum hider hadnoeg b'mitzvahs Chanukah l'tzoich pirsum hanes." But theoretically, in Chanukah also there could have been such a kind of halacha. But here, Shlomo Zalman says something which is a fantastically interesting idea, that theoretically, a person cannot opt out of an Eiruv Tavshilin, and it's not up to you to make your own Eiruv Tavshilin. If you're part of the Bnei Abayis, you are Yotza with the Abayis' Eiruv Tavshilin, whether you like it or not. Okay? Now this brings us to a fascinating thing. Shlomo Zalman said something over here. I don't know if anybody takes him to task for this. He says, could somebody translate for me those words, orchim hasamchin al shulchanai? What does that mean?
Anyone who's going to be eating by your face, even if they're not
Okay.
house members.
I'm going to share with you something that was written before Shlomo Zalman's grandfather was born. Okay, the Bechacher in Eshel Avrom has a question, and this is a very important question about married children. Okay, I have a married child that's coming to me for Shavuos. Can they be Yaitse with my Eiruv Tavshilin?
The answer is no.
What did Shlomo Zalman say?
Yes.
Okay.
Even the guest, not even someone who basically is
No, that's not what he said.
even the guest.
Right.
8 guests who is some culture. Yeah, only for the Chag, not June.
Okay, so this is the point that I wanted.
So they can help with the cooking?
You want to know why they're making it Eiruv Tavshilin? Because they want to light candles. Okay, let's say. I don't want to get involved right now in why. It doesn't really make any difference. The question is, and this is a very big machlokes, the minig in Klal Yisrael is that the guests are included in the Eiruv Tavshilin of the balabas. Whether it's like of Shlomo Zalman because they're considered part of the household, or whether it works with some kind of understood implied shlichus, I'm not going to get involved in that. That's a subject unto itself. But there are those who say that no, they should really be making their own, because they can't even buy in. They can do it. You could do it for them b'shlichus, and then they're doing it. Then that's called they're doing it. Or you could have them do it themselves. They could use the same Eiruv Tavshilin that you're using. They could pick it up and they can do the same thing themselves. But this is a fascinating question of, very basic to the subject of Eiruv Tavshilin. Who is included in the Eiruv Tavshilin that you're making? Is it, why do you have to have your wife in mind? Okay, is that only according to Shlomo Zalman, or that's a? I'll ask you a different question. When you make kiddush on Friday night, do you have your wife in mind?
Yes.
You do? I'm willing to say most people don't have anybody in mind.
I have everybody. They don't even have themselves in mind. They have sleep.
I'll just tell.
Everybody in mind is at the table.
Okay, but that's called you proactively have people in mind. I'm willing to say that that's not what most people are doing. What you're doing, right? You just, I'm making kiddush, and whoever would like to join in could join in. And you don't even think that. I'm making kiddush, right?
You ask them to be quiet.
You're making them be quiet because you want quiet when you're making kiddush.
If you want them to hear it.
I believe that everybody really understands that they have to have the other people in mind. Whether they actually have them in mind or they're just on autopilot. I'll just ask you, do most people, when they daven Shemona Esrei, do they have themselves in mind? I don't know. We'll leave that as an open question. What?
They have the word in mind.
Yeah, but I'm just saying these are the kinds of questions that are really important, and it's really a person should have in mind, and it's okay.
One of these places where people find other people in the shul on, Yom Tov and didn't know where to go, and invite them home for Yom Tov. How are they covered by they're also covered by the Tavshilin that was made before we even met this person?
I like to tell you something. I think there's something wrong with your question.
They're not doing anything. He's not eating.
Right. They're not doing anything, right? What are they doing? They're like a yeshiva bracha, right? They're not going to be here tomorrow. They're not anything. And how are they yaitz neres yontif? Let's say it's the first night of yontif. Forget about Eiruv Tavshin. How are they yaitz neres yontif?
Hopefully they live.
Because it's already lit. I mean, the guys live. If it's not Shabbos, they can light themselves, can't they? They can take from the light.
Okay, well, when I take home a guest that's, on Friday night that had no place to go, I'll just share with you a story that happened to me. I was once a yeshiva bacher, and I was a yeshiva bacher, as they would say, where I come from, with all the dinim of a yeshiva bacher. And I was in Tzfas for Shabbos, and we made arrangements to eat by somebody's house, and somehow we got wind that the guy may be eating food that's not to our standard of kashrus. So I was there with a friend of mine, and we decided we're not eating there the next morning. So we told him we're going to Morchaim, we're going to Vishnitz in the bottom, and that's where we're going to eat there. So we stayed in shul, and nobody invited us, and we're there all the way to the end, and the only one that was there was Rabbi Arnster, the Rav of Morchaim over there. So we had no choice. My friend went over to him and said, we have no place to eat. Can we eat by the Rav? So he said, no problem. And then, the thing which happened to me a zillion times in my life, he asked us, what's our names? And I said, my name is Zachariash. He says, where are you from? So I said, Detroit. He says, oh, I know your father. Right? That's just like, here I am in Tzfas, the last place that I would expect the person to know I am. Yeah, and he knows, he just met my father 2 weeks ago, whatever, that's okay. They had an ongoing relationship for many years, and I had absolutely no idea of it. And I ate at his house. And that's the only time in my life that I ever ate someplace totally on a whim. But, it was a fantastic meal. What? Yeah, I'm just saying that, but it was not planned, and I didn't know that I was going to eat there. He didn't have me in mind for anything before Shabbos. He wasn't planning on having any guests either, He had his guests, he had his family there. There was probably 25 people by the meal at least. But, we were totally off the charts. But when he made Kiddush, he had me in mind. Okay? I'm just saying, okay. That's another question. There's another question over here that I wanted to discuss. 1 second. The paper. Okay. I don't see my piece of paper. I'm just going to share with you. We'll do this balpeh. There's a fascinating question about washing dishes on Erev Shabbos. The minig, I'm going to start off, I don't want to be caught, being quoted incorrectly. The minig in Klal Yisrael is people make an Eiruv Tavshin and they wash their dishes for Shabbos. Whether that is correct or not correct is a very big machlokes haposkim, because the Eiruv Tavshilin is only made, what's it called? Tavshil, right? That means for things that have to do with eating, things that have to do with food preparation, that are not the cooking. Who says that it works for that? Could you made Eiruv Tavshin, could you set your table? So why should you go to wash your dishes, which is before you set the table? Okay, just using that as a.
Can't do it on Shabbos.
What can't you do on Shabbos?
Wash the dishes.
You can't go wash your dishes on Shabbos? We do it in my house every Shabbos.
Put on the hot water.
There's no halacha. I want to tell you something. None of the poskim before Tavshin washed any dishes with hot water. Okay? They didn't have running water altogether, right? They used, the water that they used was not hot. This is, I would just say, from the big advantages in today's day and age is somebody, I've heard from a very famous fellow in Flatbush. He said the most important invention in modern times was indoor plumbing. And he spoke about having a toilet in one's house, not having to go to the outhouse. And I say, hot water, running hot water is like a fascinating thing. Just the idea of it is mind-boggling to a person who doesn't have... What?
The Romans had it. I once read a thing about Pompeii. The city was destroyed by the volcano.
Yeah.
And we found in that
The
system of pipes
Mishnah
carrying
talks
hot
about
water.
it. They took from Chametz to
The
Berurah. They have pipes going through.
But only local.
Yeah, but that wasn't what was going on. It didn't say that nobody ever did it.
Had it available to them.
Yeah, but this is something which is a anomaly. I would say, I would be willing to say that all of our great grandparents did not have hot water running in their homes. Okay, I don't think I think that's what.
Maybe another door.
Okay, I would say in America probably not anybody before 1930s probably didn't have. Okay, I don't know. You could check that out. You'll find out when did they start having running hot water. But even running cold water is a relatively new thing. In 1900, I don't know if they had it even. Cold water. Forget about hot water. And I'm just saying this idea is very nogeya in Hilchos Isser B'Heter. Imagine if you had to wash your knife. The halacha says that stam sakin shamnunis karish al panav. The regular knife has fat embedded on its sides to it. Okay. Now imagine if you go on make a barbecue and you clean up after your barbecue. You take your knife and you go to the river or whatever and you wash it off. What do you do with it when you get home? You wash it for real, right? Because whatever you did there, that's just like, that was the way that they did it all together in the olden times. There was nothing more than that done because they didn't have more than that to do. Nowadays that we have soap and hot running water, it's a whole different story, and that has a very big nafkamina in the halacha. So this is a question which is discussed, and there are many poskim who say that Rav Vosner has a tshuva. In here, I didn't bother to find which sim it is. It'll take me a while to find it. He has a tshuva, and he says that it's included. Many poskim say that it's not included. Rav Elyashiv says, "B'shas atcha godol, a person can wash their dishes." But there's a tshuva Safni Miluyin Sim and Yud about this. This is a well-discussed subject for hundreds of years already. People are not aware of this question, and people should be aware at least that there's a question. When a person does, I think there's enough to rely on that one can wash their dishes, but that it's permissible. One has to be aware that there is a very serious question involved in that. Okay, I would say so. I just would like to make a statement about Chad Pami. I've been saying for many, many years that people should not use Chad Pami on Shabbos because it's not covered Shabbos. And I already found from Chaim Kaneski, he writes about this. He says you shouldn't use Chad Pami. And I would just like to make this statement. I believe that that's even true nowadays. People have Chad Pami that's, fancier Chad Pami, but it's still not the same thing as your fork will still break. It's not like the real thing. But, at least if you have to use Chad Pami, it should be something substantial. But if a person is doing it so that they don't have to wash their dishes, I think, here we are. Okay, we can look it up right now. Okay, Simon Samachet. Yeah, maybe we'll do this again. Okay, yeah, I think so.